what would you say if there's a technological advancement in the near future where the immersiveness in some of the online realm becomes much more realistic? Would you then say that the practices of ICH can happen in those realms, online realms? And perhaps, well, they call it the metaverse these days, right? And I just would like to hear what you think if it becomes so immersive that you can't really distinguish the metaverse from the actual reality.
Yeah. Well, maybe just one other point on, I think, the web has also become a useful tool for transmission because, there was a strong recognition of intergenerational transmission, direct transmission as being superior to, transmission that is done in schools, for example. But now with the web, especially with videos, you can transmit traditional practices on the web very efficiently. And through my work in Canada, I've realized that it is becoming, a very important means of transmission. Many young people learn traditional practices now. For example, traditional recipes, by videos that they find on the web. So it's becoming a very efficient and widespread method of transmission, and you have to recognize it and not consider it less authentic than direct transmission. With regard to immersion, we've done some work. I've done some work with in augmented reality and virtual reality, and there's some interesting possibilities, I believe, there. But I think right now the technology is still, far from being perfect. For example, we did a couple of projects using augmented reality with the HoloLens, the HoloLens, and HoloLens 1 and then the HoloLens 2. HoloLens 2 is better because you can, you have a larger view, a wider view of what's in front of you. We found, the HoloLens interesting for interpreting, heritage sites, built heritage sites, by introducing elements of ICH in the interpretation program. You see, because then you can project films in the HoloLens and interviews with people. And for example, we did the interpretation with actually a First Nations group near Quebec City. They have a traditional house that they've reconstructed, and they wanted to introduce, legends. So we recorded someone reciting legends, myths of foundation, and also, some traditional practices regarding foodways, cooking foodways, hunting practices, the uses of canoes. So this was a way of introducing elements of intangible heritage, to the actual physical site, which would have been difficult to do without the HoloLens.
Is the HoloLens something like a Google Glass where you have to put it on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Microsoft that has manufactured it. I think their first HoloLens 1 dates to about 2015, 2016. And now they put out last year HoloLens 2, which is more, it's same basic principle, but it's more efficient. And actually what you do is you simply put, the helmet on your head. And with HoloLens and augmented reality, you can actually walk and keep in touch with your physical reality. Okay. Whereas virtual reality helmets, you can't keep in touch with your immediate environment. But that is, we found that, you know, the virtual reality a bit more challenging. The advantage is that you can, you know, reconstruct in 3D, you know, through a film, for example, a 3D film that you make. You know, an environment that is totally reconstructed. You know, and I mean, it's impressive because, you know, you're completely immersed in a totally different environment. Now, originally, the films, you know, because it's actually a film that you produce, there was quite a lot of, you know, snow. The film was not of such good quality, but now they've improved them a lot. And so now you can make, you know, with good cameras, you can make films that are very high quality, you know. Now the thing is that there are challenges because, you know, people can't wear them for more than maybe 10 minutes because they get dizzy. And now with COVID, we had one project going with virtual reality. We had to stop it because of COVID. Because, you know, people were afraid of getting infected because, you know, you have to change, you have to put the helmet on people's faces, and so it's direct contact with the object, you see. And they're quite costly as well, you know. They cost. So if you want to do, you know, if you want to have groups visiting, for example, using them, then, you know, you have to buy like maybe 15 or 20, which can be a little expensive. But you also have to find some interesting uses for it. I mean, it has to give people the impression that they're discovering something new. And so you have to think of ways of having them discover environments that they're not familiar with. Like, I mean, you know, a deep dive under the ocean, you know, visiting a volcano while it's in eruption, you know, and or, you know, being in outer space. So, you know, it has to be something that will contribute to giving added value to the interpretation of a site or an event, or, you know, some element of intangible heritage. Actually, one thing that we did use it for was, for example, festivals. You know, by putting the camera in the middle of a festival or a ritual where there's a lot of activity going on at the same time. Well, then, you know, you can film it and then you put it in the helmet, and then people can view it as if they're sitting in the middle of the festival instead of being on the sidelines, you know, as is usually the case, you know, because if you're at a major festival, say a powwow, you know, an Aboriginal dance, if you have the camera in the middle of the dancers, well, then you're much more immersed than if you're simply viewing it, you know, as a spectator from outside. So it's more sort of having a view from the inside than having a view from the outside, you see. So this is, I think there's some interesting potentialities there with, you know, with virtual reality. But, you know, I think we'll have to wait till the technology improves a bit, I would say. And then, you know, finding some interesting uses for it and for interpreting intangible cultural heritage. You know, the virtual reality helmets, I mean, just in the last 3 or 4 years have the quality of the images have really improved. And, you know, for example, there was I visited one in Paris at the Museum of Natural History, where they have you know, a short 10-minute presentation of prehistoric giant animals. And it's very interesting. It's well done, you know, and the quality of the film is very, very high quality. And, you know, you're sort of surrounded by prehistoric mammals, you know, that don't exist anymore. And so it's an interesting, very interesting experience because, you know, it's something that is something that you can't experience the same way on television or, you know, through a computer or a mobile app. Yeah, so it offers a, you know, a very unique immersive experience. Yeah, and so I think there's the challenges will be to find, well, the technological challenges, improving the quality of the films and the, you know, the presentation of the films inside the helmet, but also, you know, finding themes and topics which will also, you know, be appropriate, will exploit the technology in interesting and creative ways, you know, because I mean, if you reproduce something that people can experience without, you know, having to use the technology, well, then there's not much added value to it, you know. But you know, filming the inside of a volcano in eruption is something that most human beings can't experience because they're biological beings, you know. But if you can do it and then have them sort of immerse them in that environment, well, then it's a unique experience, you know. Same thing with going undersea. I mean, you know, in deep sea diving, I mean, that's possible, you know, but many people can't afford it or don't have the possibility to do it. And so if you can, this is something that I also saw in the US, in New York, for example, in the Natural History Museum. I think it was in Washington at the Natural History Museum, where they, you know, they had a short, maybe 7 or 8 minute immersion in the deep sea. And so you would have, you know, whales and fish kind of swimming around you, which is also, I found very interesting, because something that most people can't experience in real life, you know.